Welcome everyone to this evening's Electronic Gaming Federation Overwatch Season 2, and we bring you Week 13. Mouthful, but a good mouthful worth. I am Rich Rad here with the amazing co-caster of mine, Vincent. Really excited to be getting this underway, and I'm actually looking forward to this initial broadcast because there's quite a bit of opportunity for a potential lengthy game to this first of three.
There certainly is. We've got two mid-table teams coming up against each other, trying to fight for their way to that, top spot, or at least the top spot in the mid-table, at the very least. DePaul University, Quinnipiac University. This should be interesting. 6-6 is DePaul. 6-5 is Quinnipiac. So not a whole lot between these two in the standings. That definitely suggests that we could be getting a close matchup, depending on how things go. Even map 5, possibly.
Maybe,
yeah. As we all hold our bated breaths, but. I think this is, for that reason, very exciting, like you were talking about. And I hear that you might be cheering for someone here. No bias here, of course, but
no favoritism. But being from Illinois, having DePaul University, I've had an opportunity to talk with some of the players. Tangerine being one of them. I've actually co-casted with them before a local tournament here with Game On Chicago and others in the area. But honestly, seeing them here at EGF, being able to try and demonstrate their value even further with their varsity team, and it's going to be a great opportunity to see them continue to demonstrate their ability. But again, with Quinnipiac, that's no one to really be just, thinking, hey, it's going to be an easy win. Because again, we've seen Quinnipiac multiple times before. We saw them, time after time accelerate through their meta where they have kept themselves very stable, fortified. Their communication has been very thorough to allow them to gain success in a lot of matches that they play. And, as we take a look at the map rotation or the map pool today that we've got, we're going to have a little bit of a change up from last week, as we consistently do. And Vincent, we're going to start off on Oasis.
Yeah, Oasis, of course, a map that I personally really enjoy. I think the way that you can that's a lot of difficult words. The way that you can use strategy differentiation on the different stages of this map are quite interesting. And of course, Kings Row for a second map. Kings Row, I mean, we always love to see a Kings Row, and Hanamura is the three that we are guaranteed here today. But like we were talking about, because of the fact that we have such close teams, realistically, we could definitely be seeing a 4 or a 5, depending on how things go. That being said, we move into game, and we got to pause, Rich.
Yep.
So we get to talk about what is happening on screen, the small bit that we got to look at it. We were seeing the double bubble coming out, but we're back. Sorry about that. we gave you a little bit of a false start. It's fine.
It's okay. It's basically like attempting to give a child a cookie and then taking it away and then literally just having them wait and watch to see it when it's going to actually be able to be given. But I mean, hey, we like to sometimes tease for those that are watching. But yes, you did make a comment on it. The double bubble, bringing out the Zarya and the Winston. We sometimes see some variation to that iteration with the Wrecking Ball as an opportunity. But again, with the Winston, it gives a lot of opportunity up front to get that Tesla cannon damage, generating that pressure, especially when you're going into, Firewolf, which we saw just before having to switch back to us. It was on and hovering that Reinhardt. I would not be surprised if we see Quinnipiac bring out that rush composition, because it is something that we've seen them run before, which I really would be curious to see how they can play against DePaul, who is, I feel confident with this type of double bubble and what we can really expect from that exchange.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, different strategy because of the fact that both of these comps are kind of at heart kind of brawly. One obviously more brawly than the other. One is a brawly dive comp, and one is a brawl comp. But all of that being said, the fact that we were seeing the Prime hover over that Symmetra makes that Reinhardt shield so very brittle. It's so difficult to try and get the value out of your Reinhardt when you just don't have any shield health and you're not able to keep everyone alive. So I think that from the little bit that we saw, this is going to be an interesting matchup, and it's going to be a question for me, Rich. Who cracks first under this pressure? Because is it going to be Cronos, who is going to have to go against Mayonnaise and this Echo? that's a bit of a difficult duel for any Winston player. Or is it going to be Firewolf, who has to deal with that Tesla cannon that you were talking about, as well as the fast pace movement and the pressure that the Symmetra allows onto it. It's just an interesting clash of styles here in the very start. So I think once we get on pause, should be interesting.
Well, to even build on that further, also just the support lineup that we're going to have, and that can, really depict as well how this, composition is going to be able to either snowball in some respects when you gain the advantage, or if you're going to play a little bit more sustainable. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we did see a hover over from Quinnipiac where they have this echo. There is going to need to be a lot of focus that comes out by I carries with this Hanzo, but actually Prime going to swap here towards the end as the door is open and go on an echo of their own.
Well, that's very interesting, and I think probably makes a lot of sense, considering that is still going to put a lot of pressure on that Rhine shield because of the the focusing beam. That just makes things so difficult.
And I really like this position coming out from DePaul, maintaining that high ground position, knowing that they've got the advantage with that Winston play, also getting a lot of pepper damage in onto this, attempting to get a nice pick, which does actually get rid of Grub, and that is substantial for DePaul early on this point, because then you don't have that harass on the supports.
Yeah, nothing there, right? That makes things so difficult, and it's just a flurry from there to clean everything up for Quinnipiac. They don't really have a chance in there elsewhere.
But, I mean, to be fair, with that res that comes through in the backside by Cookie, allowing that tank line to fortify themselves up front, making sure that they've got a lot of pressure to re-engage this, it's becoming very successful. But if Prime isn't managed overhead with this Echo, it's going to be very challenging. Those sticky bombs, the focus beam, especially with that follow-up, huge sticky lands onto both tanks. Almost gets the second follow-up onto the Zarya, but the Dragon Strike will be sure to do that in place. And that's going to be DePaul taking this first.
I mean, that's just such a quick Dragon Strike available. You'll love to see that coming through for my carries, and just closes things down for DePaul moving in here. They're gonna have this is I think probably the big key is that rally. Zeph with that rally, as long as you're able to get lots of players with the additional armor, it's gonna be difficult to try and dislodge them, especially with just a nano boost on the Quinnipiac side. So they're gonna have to either make an aggressive play with the Echo, maybe do what Prime did last time with those sticky bombs, or find an opening where it just wasn't before.
There was a great Bionade that came out by Obscure in the back as well to draw back Quinnipiac, but the Earth Shatter comes through. Prime is going to get instantly taken out of that duplicate on the Rhine, so it doesn't generate the Earth Shatter to try and counter, so they will lose that opportunity of the ultimate usage, but it only forced out the Primal Rage on the front position by Chronos, and with the hold, the rally actually is going to be committed to this by DePaul, and I feel that it's going to now be a lot riding on the shoulders of both Obscure with this nano boost and Zeph in the fray, trying to keep this team alive, and DePaul actually being able to maneuver around quite quickly as Mayonnaise goes onto the Echo for a flank, but is not there with the rest of the team and gets eliminated.
Yeah, I mean, you said it as it was happening. A great read. Obscure. It was all on the back of that nano boost, really opening things up there for DePaul. They had a very large investment when it came to the ultimate. I really liked how Chronos was utilizing the Primal Rage in order to just make sure everybody had very little time to get back in and holding off Quinnipiac. But now they have a lot of ults of their own, and they come back in with about 83% now taken away.
Curious to see how valuable this is going to be from Grub, since so many members of DePaul are up top. He's trying to bob and weave, does get stuck once again by Prime, who has been a real just effort for this team to keep pressure on the back line. Nice sleep dart to try and reduce that engagement from the duplicate, but it's still going to allow Quinnipiac to take this position, manage to get some percentage on the board, and even though you had DePaul with the high ground, Quinnipiac's going to fall by just really sheer strategy on this low ground.
I mean, that's just so unfortunate for the Zarya to fall. This is now just a matter of time, right? Everybody has to use those ultimates and try and get back in.
Chronos manages to bob and weave out of this, surviving, getting some picks, and to keep this front line in the back still engaging, and Prime coming in with some picks, it could be an opportunity of taking it away, and you can already see the numbers advantage going back in favor of DePaul. They're respawning quickly, they're getting to the point. You've got Quinnipiac having to force changes right now, so even though there's some percentage gained by Quinnipiac, DePaul has still managed to fortify their defenses, coordinate themselves strategically, and bring this back into overtime.
Yeah, and it was all off the back of Chronos as well, as nobody can touch. Chronos, with an incredible play on this Winston, has really stepped up here at stage number 1 of map number 1, and has impressed me thus far, Rich. I have to be honest. DePaul, without Chronos, I think that goes a little bit of a different way. Was able to get the Zarya off the ledge, had to invest. Remember that Graviton Surge, trying to win that 1v1, and lost it anyway. So lost to Graviton Surge, lost their life as well. Did Corey Trevor. So that I think turned the fight, even though it was the cap for Quinnipiac. As we move into the university, what adjustments can Quinnipiac make? We're already seeing some adjustments though from DePaul rather. They are going to be going with the Reinhardt. Not at all weird here, considering this is a great Reinhardt map.
Very predominant, and I like that they're bringing out the Mei. That is also a very signature character to bring onto this, especially when you're playing that side where DePaul is, to try and divide and conquer. Quinnipiac blocking one up front. Now Reaper, being so vulnerable, is attempting to flee. Great Bionade defensively, but now you don't lose that offensively, where there can be a chance that DePaul can press forward and take the advantage. They've got the positional benefit playing this inner corner. Zarya so low, the wall does get the Reinhardt separated. There's the pick, and that's going to be numbers advantage for DePaul.
It's all off the back of that Mei. That's it. You use that Mei effectively, and you're able to just snowball the fight away. This is DePaul University, and it's just continuing. This is perfectly played on the Mei. Grub playing on that McCree. It's not a bad pick. The problem is that it's not Mei. When Mei is able to split your team and make you create a 1v6 situation, you lose. There's just no way around it, and already Prime has a Blizzard online. This is a massive ult advantage coming in for DePaul University. Quinnipiac, I don't know what they can do. Mayonnaise trying to swap onto an Echo, trying to do something to deny potentially Chronos, but we'll see if it's effective, Rich.
Having that elevated position is an opportunity. It's going to rely solely on Prime potentially getting a pick, or even the assistance from the support line, because there is no hit scan. Oh! That was a beautiful Bionade into the Blizzard. There's going to be an easy collapse onto this. And again, only really having to force out the Blizzard for that engagement to win it, and gives more than enough time for Chronos to get back, and this is a full 6.
Obscure. That was such a great Bionade. I saw it in my eyes. I'm a Banana player myself, so I was like, this is it. The time has come. And Obscure delivers just as well. Though, granted, Quinnipiac, there's now enough time where they are coming up on a lot of big-ticket ultimates. The problem is, on the other side, there's a lot of ults, too. So it's really going to be a Q-Fest trying to figure out who is able to come out on top.
And you've got a Shatter coming through, not getting any value from Firewolf, and a return one attempts, but with that obstacle of the architecture in the way, that billboard sign prevents the follow-up. And there's still a great takedown onto Broccoli from Prime in the back, just allowing these consistent picks to come through. And that Mei, Prime in this one, even though there's a stellar front line as we talked about from Chronos last round, Prime's just really being able to take hold of these fights.
And I'm seeing a lack of aggression right now from Quinnipiac. They really need to do better at engaging with their ultimates. We saw, I said, a huge amount of ults online there for Quinnipiac, and they didn't use any of them. They really struggled. I mean, they did try to open, to be fair, with the Earth Shatter, but it went awry. There wasn't anybody caught in it, and so you have to continue trying to commit, and they didn't. So Quinnipiac moving forward, Rich, I need to see them try to get a little bit more aggressive, try to utilize their ultimates and abilities, for that matter, a little bit more quickly in these fights. Otherwise, DePaul, as we just saw, are just going to engage on them and run away with things.
To build on that, I feel like there's that little bit of disconnect, because there were a couple of moments of where there were some of the abilities, such as the Bionade, that came out from Quinnipiac when they found themselves in a very difficult position. But I don't think that it was necessary to sustain through that, because moments later, when there was an opportunity to shift that weight, where DePaul aggressed forward, you really wanted to use that more offensively to potentially change their momentum, or to sustain through that rush engagement, which they played very well in the Reinhardt Zarya. You can for sure tell that the tank lineup right now from DePaul is very, very profound in their decision making and knowing when to dive into this, and has the support from their back line.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's no question about it. They felt very comfortable on both of the tank compositions that they were playing, doing an incredible job regardless of the situation. And, there was some situations, I thought, where Quinnipiac, they were just stuck in a tough spot, right? that being one of them. The biotic grenade, sometimes your opponents make a great play. That was a great play by the Ana player. Obscure did that well. That being said, you have to reset, and I think that last fight really tells me a whole lot about at least the mindset in that moment from Quinnipiac. It was just not there. The aggression was not there, and that's something that I really need to see moving forward, because DePaul, they weren't phased by an Earth Shatter going down. They're like, yeah, it's easy. We'll just block that off. And then everybody got split from Quinnipiac, making it very difficult for them to re-engage coherently in the rest of that fight, and for obvious reasons got wrecked because of it. They didn't they weren't able to walk away with many of those kills. They got split up. That's the whole point of a brawl composition. You're a big blob, you move together, but when you get split apart, you are not very powerful.
And the value of May truly speaks to that volume, able to just completely separate it. Even if the pickups weren't coming through, like originally with the Reaper, they severed off Quinnipiac where you had to force that disengage, all of the focus onto the wall to just at least try to save your ally. Once again, wait for the time, comes up. Now the Reinhardt separated. You get that pick, and it's just that constant awareness that you need to have when going into a composition like that with a May, that maybe even taking the high ground in that sense might have been a better option, because you wait to drop down even, and you could maybe move as a unit to try and make it a little bit more challenging for the May. But I mean, overall, I think the biggest part of it is going from this control map into our next map selection, which is going to be King's Row. Scrims Row, everybody knows this map. Everybody's been on it. We kind of put a pin in it. Quinnipiac can take some knowledge from the way that DePaul plays and start effectively adapting in this map of King's Row so that they can get an upper hand.
Yeah, and that adjustment needs to be either play a May of your own or clean up. I mean, I'm going to say clean up the comms. I'm obviously not hearing them. But I know, as where I've played myself, you really have to just nail it down. If you're playing against a May, you have to, your main tank has to be, 3, 2, 1, now we're going. There has to be that sort of specificity. Otherwise, it's easy to get caught out against a good May player. And DePaul certainly has one of those. So moving into King's Row, it is going to have to be, number one, a May on the side of Quinnipiac. I don't think that is the only option, though. I think that they can take to the skies like they tried to with the Echo. They just have to be a little bit better on the ground game and not get split off as easily. You could also just go Reaper and hope to win that out in the ground duel. That's all obviously a possibility as well. I think that there's lots of options ultimately for Quinnipiac. It's just about their execution. How can they execute effectively here on map number 2 of this best of 5 series?
Well, and when you talk about the ground game, the dynamic that I would really like to see consistently would be a little bit more of that Tracer from Grub. It was initially taken down because of the Brigitte. You've got that solid crowd control, but because it hasn't been consistent with DePaul, I'd like to see it, because it is a very favored Tracer, meta and feeling right now. But with this May, as you talked about, going to be coming out from Quinnipiac, attempting to try and take a chapter out of DePaul's book, manages to do so, gets a divide, takes down 2 with Grub taking a 3rd, and that'll be an easy defensive hold here.
And look, Obscura had another massive Bionade, but it didn't matter because of this May. Mayonnaise perfectly placing that wall, making it impossible to follow up on. And so the tank line getting caught out for DePaul University. They definitely are going to be in a position where, now what do? You go the high ground. That's what it looks like is the play. And you mentioned it there in the mid game. You said, go high ground. That's a great strategy, a great idea. It makes it a lot harder to effectively place this May wall.
And now they're going to drop as the unit attempting to divide does actually find one, managing to take down Echo Loco, which is not what you want to see. DePaul really needing to play careful, because especially with this divide, it's not going to be easy for Echo Loco to get back into this with the spawn because of where DePaul is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why Primus on this McCree. I think that the McCree was probably coming out to deny potential Echo pick, but that's not there. So I think you try and swap this off as soon as you use this Deadeye, if you ask me.
I mean, to be fair, the way that DePaul has been playing and how Quinnipiac has managed to respect that high ground position, it's gonna allow that regroup from Echo Loco up front, so it is a numbers advantage, especially when you get the double kill coming out from that Deadeye. This May wall is no longer going to be able to benefit in this open space to fully divide a team apart. Broccoli has to completely commit this coalescence into the fight to sustain, attempting to prevent DePaul from managing to get these ticks. There is still one being prevented, but it's so close, and with the numbers advantage steadily going in favor favor of DePaul. This will be a transition into Streets phase.
Yeah, and I mentioned a potential swap. Prime is going to swap off that McCree onto an Echo of their own, but that is just exactly what you want to see if you are a fan of DePaul University, playing it perfectly, trying to rotate around and make it so that it's very difficult for Mayonnaise to get value out of the May pick. Does just that and puts it, like you said, into the open space where the May is just not nearly as effective and wins the fight off the back of it.
This is the next segment where you could see Quinnipiac take advantage. This choke point is a very challenging position to move through because it's such a finite space. Though, you've got the Blizzard ready, you've got the Maywall ready. The Earthshatter comes in lightning fast to try and just break down any sort of defenses. You even got the sound barrier into this. And like I said, you have to push full force through that doorway because Mayonnaise on this May will completely cripple it, but not this time around.
That commitment right there from the Lucio, the sound barrier, perfectly placed. You really do love to see that. Able to keep everyone healthy and alive for the time being, and denies any sort of value out of the Blizzard that Mayonnaise had online, as well as that Mayonnaise now swapping over to a hit scan, trying to deal with Prime, who's been a bit of a menace here in the skies whenever they have been on this Echo, and it's going to be another difficult push considering the Grab Dragon online for DePaul University.
I mean, the Ashe is not a bad play here. It's an opportunity that you can use and really try and get that explosive damage out, the additional player in sense when you've got Bob coming into this fight. But again, Prime is just basically free to do what they want in this back line. Gets a sticky pickup as well. And that's just going to be an easy checkpoint reached.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Grab Dragon, it missed. They didn't get anything off the back of it. Just a lot of space, and they get a lot of off the back of the grab, but not so much the dragon, I should be clear. But, it didn't matter that the big, Q press W key victory didn't work. They were creating so much havoc in the backline Prime that it just did not end up mattering all that much. So, nonetheless, as they come into it, that's a nice catch, though. Grub finding that kill.
And this is where you have to have Quinnipiac gain their bearings. There's two already down. The numbers advantage favors them, but there's still this forward press because Prime is opening up a window with this quick generation and the fire strike as well. But ultimately, it falls short. Doesn't last long enough to stabilize, and Quinnipiac holds on here.
Yeah, and that pick's so key coming through from Grub. Something that we've not been seeing all that often there is Quinnipiac getting the opening picks, and something that you're able to do there, and you see how much it matters. Even though DePaul was in a good position, they were forced to go backward, and with a very light smattering of ultimates coming into this DePaul, they're going to have to play this a little bit more passive. They're going to have to figure out what to do off the back of just a Graviton Surge.
But they've got the time to do it, which is the best part of it. Again, this is one of those segments that you can run the clock for so long, and at this point, it's not going to be too much sweat off the back of DePaul because they need that ultimate economy. They're only really relying on that grab, and now with this opening, with two already going down because Kronos being supported up front with the barrier and the support line, even Grub's trying to equalize it, but it's still being such a challenge when you've got Echo Loco with 100 energy and just vaporizing targets in their sight line. Only a few meters left to go, and it's just going to be desperate plays to try and get onto this point with Bob now no longer in the mix.
Oh, but that's a four-man shatter. That's definitely a way to get back into things via Firewolf, and does just that. So it does stabilize everything for the Quinnipiac side, but look at the problem. I mean, do you see it, Rich? I certainly do. There's 5 ultimates online. That is a lot of check marks, and they didn't use anything to take that. It was off the back of, by the way, I have to mention it, Obscure with another amazing biotic grenade to take down the Reinhardt there in the opening of that fight. But yeah, this is going to be difficult for Quinnipiac. They're going to have to pull out some magical stuff.
Aggression comes through with the grab, pulling 2 to the central of the cart, but there is a fade coming through by the Moira to fall back. A flanking Dragon Strike comes through. I love this just spunky positioning by Quinnipiac, taking the risk and yielding value from it.
That's exactly what you needed to see. I said that they needed to pull something massive out, and they did just that. Quinnipiac, mostly Grub, I will say. First of all, winning out that sniper duel against Prime, then coming through from the back line, able to get the nice Dragon Strike across the back, and picks up 2 with it. So perfectly played, and that has forced a ton of ultimates from the side of DePaul.
Ooh, Shatter comes in, but there is a counter. You've gotten multiple members, as you can see, from Quinnipiac being overrun. The Coalescence from Broccoli with a Hail Mary use. 50 seconds to go. Broccoli's just basically going to have to be the only one to keep this into overtime. The flashbang comes through to shut it down as Mayonnaise has to drop to the bottom, but the Wrecking Ball comes out for the spin to win. Attempting to get some knockbacks with the grab, also keeping those two tanks isolated for a potential follow-up and damage. The Ryan continues to swing by Kronos up front, still keeping alive by the backline, but finally gets eradicated from this payload. The Wrecking Ball goes too. You've got the McCree uncontested in the back. I-carries also left to their own devices as they are just getting picked off on the side of Quinnipiac over and over. Bob, now the last remaining individual with that solo Lucio play, can't keep alive, but the sleep dart at least keeps Bob available for this.
I mean, that's just so difficult. Now the respawn's coming in, though. The opportunity available. It looks like DePaul might be coming away with this victorious.
Yep, and now you have the wholesale swaps. You've got the Tracer. Anyone that can get to this point as quickly as possible, but it's not going to last. That is more than enough for DePaul to be able to pick off one by one, especially with the hit scans in the back of the crowd control to complete it. But the good thing is Quinnipiac managed to remove all of the time bank for DePaul.
Yeah, and that's the key, right, Rich? You had so much time there if you're DePaul on the attack looking for the push on point 3, but Quinnipiac able to hold just long enough, able to get away with the third point hold. It wasn't enough to get them, just 2 points, but still not at all bad if you're Quinnipiac University. And so now DePaul, they got the uno dos adios. Now it's time to see if they can hold on the other side of things.
You ever drink your water so fast it goes down the wrong tube? That's me right now.
I've been there.
How I feel. Yeah, so, sorry, taking a sidetrack there. Whew, I'm back. As now you said, yes, with a swap of sides and taking a look at the defense, we've got Prime on this May. If Quinnipiac has not learned from their previous round of control, that will be their downfall at this point.
Well, DePaul, if they were taking notes on DePaul's attack, they might have figured out exactly how to beat Prime at his own game, to be fair. So I would be on the lookout here. It's definitely possible. And Quinnipiac, they're going for a very similar composition that they have been running. Mayonnaise on this McCree, though, whereas Grub has moved to the Reaper.
With that Reaper, it's hopefully going to be able to get that extra damage to rush onto this point and to clear off. I mean, look at that instant rush, but the Maywall does at least divide. Beautiful Bionade as well onto Firewolf. That's going to be the turnaround, despite that aggression from Quinnipiac to be completely shifted in favor of DePaul.
I mean, and this is what I talked about in the mid game, right? I said that Quinnipiac needed to be aggressive. They just did. They did it well. I really like that. The problem is Obscure. It's just incredible with Bionades and consistently is able to get those antis off and does another one right there. Oh my goodness, this has been brilliant stuff from the Ana player of DePaul University, Obscure. Just basically putting the team on the back and carrying them. And it looks as if, look at this, they were taking notes, Rich. They thought about going up top and they're like, yeah, let's not do it.
We've got Post-it notes here by our side for a reason, but they're actually going to decide to take another angle and go through the hotel, weaving around the main wall, attempting to find the damage necessary, but Firewolf, again, so low, tiptoeing around respawn time, and will end up being there. No availability to get that ultimate either in this. I would really like to see the ult wait, but they're going to commit it. Mayonnaise goes down. The Coalescence no longer available. Quinnipiac now going to find themselves in an interesting position, but actually, as much as I was worried, Broccoli comes out steamed and ready for some salt and butter.
Well, and that was a little bit of an interesting play. The double commitment of those ultimates, it was the right play for sure. They were able to pick up the point off the back of that, and yeah, it was a little bit slower than the likes of DePaul did, but getting too aggressive. That's so rough for Firewolf, going down off the back of that wall.
This is where the overzealous play really starts to be challenging. Like, you go against a team like DePaul where they've shown that they are aggressive. If you try and push that just too far, they will exploit it instantly.
I mean, and they did exploit it instantly. It was actually incredible the speed with which DePaul re-engaged there. And now they have a plethora of ultimates to deal with. And oh my, did that just get slept out?
No, it literally got slept out, but there's also the wall there too. A combination of two, really just acknowledging how Firewolf has been playing. And again, it's I think a little bit too much of an overzealous dynamic that's coming through, but we'll see if Quinnipiac is able to get something out of this. A Blizzard's going to lock down multiple members here. You even had that sound barrier committed as well to sustain, and you've got this corner of the bookstore now taken care of once again, and to push towards that archway.
And that bookstore is such a good position to hold from, and it actually doesn't even matter about the bookstore. You can push up and hold this choke point right here if you really wanted to. It looks like they're not going to be able to do that though, with the speed with which the re-engage comes through.
Grab Dragon, once again, there is a sound barrier to give some I was going to say stability. It's actually going to be able to do so. There's more than enough with the Death Blossom from Grub coming in the back to try and equalize. The supports need to be taken care of, though, for DePaul. Just continuing to stray away, and this May in the back from Prime finally getting removed. And this is where now Quinnipiac can start gaining some distance.
Cookie's got to be feeling great with the amount of ultimates that was really defended with that one sound barrier. Basically everything there thrown in from DePaul University, but nothing really gained off the back of that. Now they've got to come in pretty much dry. Prime approaching a blizzard, but it's going to be a little bit before he gets there.
Firewolf attempting, but goes right into the shield, and the Fire Strike attempt leaves that vulnerable tank all alone with a Maywall behind. It is just about 3 meters, but with this blizzard, that's going to be a great chance to even the score here. Prime should be able to stabilize with the rest of the team as long as they can keep alive, but this back and forth exchange and this skirmish right now is quite hectic, and I could honestly see this going in favor of DePaul.
Yeah, and that's just unfortunate. Prime misplacing that blizzard really opens it up for Quinnipiac, though.
Coming back through, attempting to press on, does get pinned to the backside. Firewolf needs to be careful as Broccoli forces out once again that coalescence to keep alive. No longer having any support ultimates, especially with the Lucio down. The Dragon Strike immediately, well, I'm going to hold on to it here. I was going to say the grab came out, and Kronos was able to get more than enough damage out to save it.
Yeah, I mean, that fight ultimately just going on so very long that DePaul eventually had the advantage when it came to those ultimates coming through. We saw the investment, and there's a reason why. With about a minute and a half left now, it's going to have to be a do-or-die moment for Quinnipiac here in map number 2. They've got some tools to work with, so it's not all for naught, but it's still going to be difficult in the dry fight because, listen, this has been so good for DePaul, and that's prime reason why Obscure with those biotic grenades have been so brilliant.
Oh, and you can see the flank right here. iCarry gonna throw it into the tank line. You have to divide and conquer now, and you leave Corey Trevor all alone, and that's instantly exploited.
I mean, and here's the problem, right? You came in, you have an ultimate advantage if you're Quinnipiac, but just one well-placed Dragon Strike shuts it all down. You get split, like you said, and it's all over from there. You've got to re-engage, and there's just time ticking off that clock. Every second matters here at this point.
35 seconds. You can see Peek in the corner, attempting to try and get some peppered damage in, generating ultimates as quickly as possible. You want to have a support ultimate going into this, and that's why you've got that Lucio playing forward. Now with the High Noon, gonna peek the corner, potentially draw. Does get one! I cannot believe that the value came through onto one target, and now you've got another. Death Blossom is a do-or-die moment now for Quinnipiac. The triple comes out. Grub has so much riding on their shoulders, and the sound barrier could be enough to stabilize for Quinnipiac to get to this checkpoint. Picks coming through. Chronos up front finally goes down. It's only the Zarya play remaining from Echo Loco inside the tube. Will get it into the overtime, attempting to touch this point, but there needs to be some kind of contention here.
Yeah, Prime swapping over onto the Tracer, trying to do that. Does touch, but it's short-lived as well. And so it looks as if it might, yeah, indeed, going to be the last-second stand there. Grub, the hero of the Resistance, is Quinnipiac University. Barely able to bring that out. 5 kills in total, and it was just an incredible turnaround from them to pick up what was a pretty much team kill.
Now moving into these final moments, attempting to use every second they've got. Only 60 for Quinnipiac. There is no moments to falter right now. The shatter comes through, does get blocked. Shield is broken. The picks come through. Corey Trevor now aggressing forward. The numbers heavily in favor of Quinnipiac, attempting to keep the flow going. Cookie gets the double, forcing everyone back. The golden box is within their grasp of completion in this round, with time, mind you, especially with Grub getting another pick onto Prime, and no one's going to be able to get there in time. Barely touches it. The Lucio movement speed comes through in the nick of time. The kills are starting to go now in favor of DePaul. The Coalescence is committed by Broccoli in the back. We've seen how much value it can gain, but this time I don't think it's going to be enough. The respawn advantage in favor of DePaul. The focus fire has to be significant right now for Quinnipiac to keep this going and reach that end. 1 meter just under left to go, and it is just attempting to bring this to a 0-0 time equalizer, and you've got DePaul though coming through and preventing Quinnipiac from completion, and will be able to take this map as the overtime dwindles, all attempting to touch, but this will not last long enough as that wick is instantly blown down.
Man, down to the wire there for Quinnipiac, but just barely falling to that recontest. What a commitment right there from Zayf. Able to use, number one, the sound barrier, right? But then obviously the speed boost, just, so close. That was a great Earth Shatter, by the way. I was blown away by that one. I was like, how? What? Why? But nonetheless, Rich, I mean, an emotional roller coaster to say the least in that map. Kings Row does go to DePaul University, but Quinnipiac, they were that close. I mean, just that close. And that's it.
And that's why I was saying, towards the beginning of this map where, entering into Kings Row from a control is a very different type of play style. When you're going into this, it's honestly the place where I thought we would see a lot more of that even footing. Both of these teams playing a lot more on the strategic level outside of the control, but DePaul still managing to get the upper hand here, bringing themselves into this next map, which is going to be match point. So there's a lot riding on this, but I can for sure say that Quinnipiac is not going to be going down without a fight.
No, not at all. And I will say that we are moving into Hanamura, which, if you know anything about Hanamura, particularly point number 2, is that Brawl just doesn't really work very well over there. You can play it, but the Zarya in particular, which has been a mainstay of both of these teams' compositions, just is not ideal there on point 2 of the defense or the attack for that matter. I mean, really anywhere on Hanamura, except for point 1. So I think that this is the opportunity for Quinnipiac to, make an adjustment with their composition, try to change things up and utilize one of their other strengths as a team that is not that Brawl composition to potentially catch off the entirety of DePaul University off guard.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're going into preset maps like this, it's a little bit nicer for teams because they can at least start to play the mental game. Like, you don't have to have as much bandwidth going to, all right, we've got 3 maps, one's going to get banned, or it's going to be one of those 3. What do we think they're going to play? How are they going to try and counter? So having this setup is actually also a very, strategic way to look at it, because you can go into this preparing for things like this. You mentioned where that Zarya doesn't play as strongly on the second point, and how dynamically will both of these teams adjust to, basically acclimate to that change.
Yeah, I mean, you're going pretty much all the way across the world, from London to Japan. So it's gonna be a rough going. The jet lag setting in. You gotta make sure to get there, and I think that we could see rather Quinnipiac make some of those adjustments a little bit quicker than DePaul. The reason I say that is that DePaul, what they've been doing has been working. So they don't have as much of a reason to try and adjust, right? They're like, well, hey, it's not failed us yet. Let's keep on running it. And so for that reason, I think DePaul probably going to be slower to adjust, but we will see as we move into Hanamura. It is a big question mark. And you mentioned, knowing these maps ahead of time, it also makes it so that you can scrim just the maps you're playing. You don't have to worry about, thinking, okay, well, our or XYZ map, you know, Anubis is terrible. Are they going to pick that or not? Or who's going to get the opportunity to pick that? No. You're playing Hanamura. You can spend all your time prepping and being good at Hanamura, which I think could give us a much better game in general because both of these teams are prepped and ready to go.
Surprised at the defensive selection from Quinnipiac. I honestly thought I was going to see a Mei, just because of this initial point. It can be so devastating to compete against a Mei on this map at the first point, but they're going to opt for the double hit scan. You do still get that damage boost from Cookie on the Mercy, so I'm curious how that's going to translate going against DePaul, who is coming out with a Symmetra and is going to swiftly move to this point.
Yeah, this is a great strategy. It's just sit on the point, see how long it takes them to get rid of you on the point for this team on the DePaul side.
Okay, it's actually going to be, yep, there's the full group, using that main wall to just completely rotate around, using the Pagoda's roof as the location of exit. I like the positioning, though, from Quinnipiac to try and sustain through it to recontest, but DePaul is just getting 3 points. Now looking for the second, and with these staggered kills coming through, and an Orisa, mind you, with this double shield composition, they are so fortified on this point.
I talked about it being the adjustments, Rich. It wasn't really adjustments. It was the plan. The plan for DePaul just so good. They were able to do everything necessary, and, well, that was a bit of a nasty stagger, but it's not really going to matter with the instant respawn. So back already is Broccoli, and back already is DePaul as they move on to the point.
There is no room for any sort of recovery. DePaul just wants to push the pedal to the floor, and green means go. Overwhelming and picking up members, but with the respawn advantage so heavily in favor of Quinnipiac, this is the chance where if the focus fire comes through, it'll be an easy stability. Still 5.5 minutes to work with on the time bank, and you've got now a lot riding on this. The photon barrier, counter shatter gets knowns, but honestly, there's still far too much here for DePaul just completely pressing onto this. You've got a supercharger to get that extra boost of damage. Grub gets shut down on the high noon, but because no one can take down that high ground, they're freely pumping out damage.
Yeah, Grub is the hero right now for Quinnipiac. Been the hero multiple times for Quinnipiac, continuing to do just that. Up on that high ground, entirely uncontested. Had support from the healers in the back line. Of course, the Ana, so good at it supporting Grub from the long range in the back line, and that just allows for DePaul to, one by one, get tagged down, and it didn't really matter with the spawn advantage that Quinnipiac lost out initially. So coming back into this one, DePaul, what do they do? How do they adjust? They first are going to swap off of that Symmetra. Unsurprising, considering that the Symmetra after that first pick, usually not super effective.
You can see Mayonnaise looking for an opportunity in that Dragon Strike. You've got the Blizzard. The Globe of Ice is going to easily overwhelm all that are on the high ground from Quinnipiac. Mayonnaise could not give any assistance, even with the Dragon Strike. And now dropping down to the low point. As I said earlier, the spawn advantage is in favor of Quinnipiac. One tick has been obtained. You've got Obscured in the back, continuing to pump in that long-range healing like you talked about for Quinnipiac, but it's going in heavily favor of DePaul, keeping stability on this point, looking for that third tick. Fire Strike ain't going to get the kill, but that sure as well come throughs by the boop. High noon to secure it all, as there's just under 4 minutes on this time bank for DePaul.
A great, aggressive first and second push right there for DePaul University. Looking very strong. And again, I want to go back to what adjustments were going to be made. Quinnipiac, they seem a little lost. They don't know quite what they want to do, or at the very least, what they want to do is not working against DePaul University. And to be fair, DePaul University basically just threw a wrench into the entirety of this game by pulling that composition out on attack. Yes, you always know it's possible, but you don't also often or necessarily expect for it to be pulled out. The Symmetra strategies can be so strong, and they work more often than not. There's at the very least, they work as a way to catch off your opponents. And I think that Quinnipiac, they got caught off right there.
Oh, absolutely. And it never stopped. I mean, when it went to second point transition, even though you didn't have DePaul take it completely, it's just constant pressure. You will never see DePaul give Quinnipiac the time to try and gain a solid foothold in this. And now with the swap of sides, we can take a look at that defensive positioning here. We're going to have Prime on the Tracer. And I actually really like that because I think that if there is some pressure onto both Cookie and to Broccoli, especially with Broccoli now coming out onto this Baptiste, getting rid of that immortality field is going to be key.
You know what I'm happy about? I'm happy that I now know what the inside of that vase looks like. I never knew, and now I do. It's wonderful.
We learn things. We learn things about the environment every time we play the game, and that was one that we needed. As we're going back now onto the needed fight near the bell, you have got the teleporter coming through from Grub, but it is going to be answered much more effectively by DePaul, clearing everyone from Quinnipiac on that point.
It just looks like a poor imitation from Quinnipiac right now, trying exactly the composition that DePaul came out with. Doesn't work. The rotations were a little bit too sloppy, and as well, the fact that we're on a Winston for Chronos, that makes it all the more difficult with the Tesla cannon going through shields, basically annihilating the entirety of that before it even begins. So the swaps instantly come through. Now we're on to Ryan Zarya, but yet another great biotic grenade from Obscure stalls this out for a little bit longer.
And look at Prime, just like a shark in the water waiting to attack its prey, looking to just take attention away from the front line and put Quinnipiac in an even more unfavorable position. And every time Quinnipiac's going to press on, Prime's going to be there just to pepper in damage. Whether they respond or not, it's still gaining value.
And I mean, you could even argue Prime didn't even need that pulse bomb.
True.
It was already won. But, you know, just a little bit of extra spice to close it out. I don't mind that. That being said, especially because what is there on the other side? Like what is available with those early swaps? You're now in a position where that's crazy. Prime, how do you win that fight? I didn't even catch where it was. It was incredible though. The Tracer winning out against the Echo is chef's kiss.
Aerial acrobatics, but when taking the likes of a shotgun shell to the face, Grub does gain the advantage here. And this is honestly an opportunity for Quinnipiac to take advantage of this, especially because, Obscure gonna get overrun, does have the bind, has to flee, does go down. This is now Quinnipiac's opportunity. They have to take this. They need to rush to point, and you can see that charge instantly going on, and the Transcendence has to be forced out from DePaul. To recover from this, there is so much that needs to be very well coordinated to turn it around. The Discord doesn't get enough damage. Prime comes in for at least a melee kill with a quick engagement from the spawn, but it's going to fall short, and Quinnipiac, with that takedown onto Prime's aggression and the valuable takedown onto Obscure, gives them that first point.
Yeah, catching Obscure out, that is the key to get in here and do the damage to the likes of DePaul University. That being said, you know, that was a very nice hold on point number one. Definitely a much more solid hold than what we saw on the opposing side. And you're walking into a bank of ultimates that is very big. I mean, you got 5 of them here for DePaul University. Granted, you have some tools on the other side. It's just very difficult to try and contend with all of that.
Ooh, but that nice takedown comes out early, but you lose a support in the exchange. Chronos on this monkey. Oh, the Winston Primal Rage to follow up. That is 3 down. Defensively, easy sustain.
And who opened that up? It was Obscure. Another biotic grenade, entirely denying healing from a player on Quinnipiac University. The dive comes in, and they are deleted. Just absolutely incredible from the Ana player of DePaul University, really making the step up, and now you can combo this nano boost with Chronos and get another massive cleave damage coming through. That's just exactly what you want to see if you are DePaul.
Oh no, and Grub's gonna get sought out at the bottom. There's some ooh, has to force that disengagement, looks for the health pack, surviving through it as I carries, has to flee! 2 HP survives. Needing some assistance down below, and Grub goes down. That 1v1 was no longer in Grub's in Grub's favor when the Winston came back into that.
Yeah, the 1v1 is no longer a 1v1, and a little bit rude. It's okay, Chronos, I'll forgive you, but still, a great job supporting your Hanzo player, and it's just now, you know, an extra 30 seconds. There's another 20-30 seconds the picks. They're working so well in DePaul University's favor. Quinnipiac have got to stop giving them opportunities to walk in. They have 6 ults, and they can't go in because of these picks.
Yeah, the first was with Grub being down below. I mean, honestly, having Grub be in a flanking position is not a bad idea, but when you've got something like that arrow to just give vision to where anyone could potentially be, you can't risk that. Oh, and there's another Bionade.
Time, Rich.
Oh, goodness. It's crazy, the Ana plays right now. Now looking for the charge in to come through. Grab comes out, but there's a Transcendence to instantly respond with a Deadeye for 2. Oh my, only a minute and 40 seconds left right now, and Quinnipiac is probably just shaking at their seats saying, we gotta figure something out.
I mean, I don't think they're shaking. I think their hands are in the air thinking, what do we do here? It's just been incredible play after incredible play coming through from DePaul University. They've invested heavily, might I add, in that last fight and got utterly destroyed. Sent back to spawn in record time. And now they've got to try and engage. They do have most support ultimates, so that is positive. They can deal with Echo Loco. But again, an opening pick there for both of the DPS on the DePaul side.
They got to scram. Quinnipiac is going to get one last good chance at this. I dare say 2, but Kronos is going to just draw out the time even further. You've got the Primal Rage. You might as well press the attack, forcing and dividing this team in these moments. And now you're just trying to get into the mental game where you just want to shut them down so they don't even have a chance.
I mean, I would even say that it's not just the mental game. That's an extra, 15 seconds right there. Now, what was 2 potentially fights, you have guaranteed 1, and, that's it, right? Nothing else, despite a nice little sleep coming through from Broccoli. We've been talking a lot about Obscure, but Broccoli playing well as well. Just, not on quite the level that Obscure has been.
Now the aggression comes through. All members towards the point. Sound barrier into a Deadeye Dragon Strike from crossing angles. You're gonna put the shield towards one direction while the bullets come from the other. The time shall dwindle. The overtime has commenced, but there is more than enough here from DePaul University to clean this up. The overtime vanishes. As there's some, it's just, again, you love to see the desperate plays, but honestly, with the way that DePaul has been playing, how dominant they have been, I mean, I'm giving them some serious credit for how well they've been able to utilize their play style of aggression over Quinnipiac and just completely take this a 3-0.
I mean, I just love how much thought they're putting into plays, Rich. Sometimes you see teams, they know, okay, well, you want to combo this ult with that ult and make this work, and that's just kind of how the game works, and so that's what you do. But it's clear that DePaul, they are intelligently thinking about this game, and this is what tells me that they did. Not that I needed any extra, reasonings throughout this series, but, knowing, okay, let's put one player on this high ground, one on the other high ground, you're going to have to deal with one side or the other, and, well, it spells destruction because you can't deal with both at the same time. It's just brilliant stuff from DePaul University. Unfortunately, Quinnipiac just not able to handle it.
And that'll allow DePaul to keep moving their way up with the now 7 wins to 6 losses. So they're keeping themselves in a very positive light moving forward. And as we do conclude that, we are actually going to have the opportunity of speaking with one of the players after that match. And I can guarantee you they're feeling pretty darn good about it. And even though Kings Row was a little bit of a challenge for them, they still managed to come out on top quite convincingly here overall. So again, for those that are tuning in, don't go anywhere. We'll be able to have that interview coming up in just a moment, and we can see and pick the brains of those members from DePaul. Welcome back, friends, as we are here with the interview as we spoke just before the break. We are having an opportunity to get to speak with DePaul's player, and I'm going to say it correctly this time. It is Icarus, because I just didn't look at it correctly, and I thought the spelling was different. So, Icarus, how are you? I'm so glad that you are here. I apologize to have butchered your name.
It's no worries, no worries. So many people get it wrong. It happens all the time. I'm doing well. I'm really happy we just won that match. I knew some of the people on the other team, so it was nice to get the upper hand on them.
Okay. I mean, Quinnipiac, you've seen them before. I can guarantee over the course of time. So I mean, the camaraderie amongst your opponents is something that I'm not surprised at all. I mean, one thing I really want to kind of talk about too, especially since you've played against a team like this, your aggression as a team, which I have seen in other tournaments and here, is just always so foolproof. Like, you just play as such an aggressive, like, explosive, destructive ball of fire. Who's leading all of that? Like, who is the one that's literally calling this out?
Our comms are biggest thing we've been working on it. A lot of it is just we're just a group of aggressive people. We just all like to go in. We try to get Cronus to do the shot calling. A lot of the time, he's working on it. Sometimes he can be a little it's hard for him to. He's such a mechanical player that when he's focusing on his mechanics, it can be hard for him to shot call. But he leads for the most part. Other than that, like, we all kind of have our own roles and we all like work as a team. It's not really one person as it is a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By committee, interesting. Yeah, you know, always love to see who's able to step up and lead, and it sounds like Chronos as well as some others able to do that for you guys. I have to ask this question, not about you specifically, but I'm an Ana player, so I was very impressed, and I was loving Obscure's gameplay. Those biotic grenades from Obscure, absolutely incredible. Could you just talk for a moment about Obscure as a teammate and tell me, like, is that the norm for Obscure?
Obscure is he's one of the more quiet, or one of our more quiet players, but he's certainly very mechanically talented, and he always he's very good about sleeps and nanos. The biggest problem we have with him sometimes is he's too quiet. Sometimes last EGF match, he actually got a sleep on the enemy tracer, and no one on the team heard him call it out, and then he died because we couldn't kill for him.
No!
We still won the fight, but he had a sleeping tracer on the back, and no one was there to finish him off.
That's so sad.
It's okay. You just gotta look for that like one indicator word. Be just like
after that. I put him on. He's on 150% in Discord for me now.
So even if there's a subtle gasp, you're like, wait, what is it? What is it? We gotta save him. Something happened.
Get to the grandma.
I mean, honestly, working on, the comms is a very, very big thing. We see that with a lot of teams where there can sometimes be a lot of, disconnection. And I mean, we've talked about it through so many broadcasts where that makes and breaks the games, because you have to know so much in this game. What is it that you've done, technically with you and your teammate to help enhance that? Like, what kind of processes do you go through to heighten that communication?
A lot of the time we divide our team into roles. So like Echo Loco is usually in charge of the ult planning and the fight planning. Cronus is typically in charge of calling out when to engage, who we're going on, like target focus. And then we have Zafe, who's a really good ult tracker. It's insane. He can, like, one time he called out percents and it was so accurate. It was incredible. Yeah.
You want to bring them to the casino because you're gonna have them be counting cards. I'm kidding. Don't do that, people. Don't do that.
Oh, true. So many jokes that you can't say on broadcast. Oh, that's tough. Oh. Well, okay. So let me follow up there. What I think that for me, I was so impressed going back to Rich's first question about you guys. So aggressive, right? Able to push forward. But I was very impressed with both you and Prime, I believe, the DPS duo, able to really pop off. And what was on Hanamura in particular, because it was devastating. The amount of times that unfortunately Quinnipiac just got staggered off by a random kill, an arrow, or a nice shot from the Peacekeeper, from Prime or yourself, able to find that. Was that just the play? Were you guys like, let's just find the stagger kills, or was it just you're poking and hey, look what I found?
Well, yeah, that's a hard situation for them. We have two really like mid-range, long-range characters, so we get a lot of advantage from that poke. And coming back from Hanamura's spawn is really dangerous because it's so open, and there's those two windows that you can just shoot out on. So we were really just abusing those and getting their like echo as many times as we could.
Or that 1v1 attempt down against the
on the
Reaper.
Yeah. So I sonicked him and then I called it out and I was like, I'm gonna go on him because like I was like I thought I could get the headshot, but then he noticed that I was coming or something. So I like backed off, I leaped, and then I ran to Mini, and then Cronus just finished him off. I did actually hit a headshot, I think, but it was with Storm Arrow, so it didn't quite do enough damage.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, overall, it was a stellar play from you and your team, and it's exciting to see, you know, the development that you have going into this as a unit, especially like you talked about the communication, which is most important that you've really developed. And going through those types of exercises is a great opportunity to any team that you challenge moving forward.
Yeah.
But we don't want to take up more of your time. We greatly appreciate it. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and excited to see you continue on with the rest of your team, my friend.
Thank you. All right.
Absolutely.
Good luck with casting the future matches.
Definitely. Take care and have a good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
And for all of those tuning in, we are not done for the evening. No. There is a lot more Overwatch to be had. We are going to be having 3 more series coming up. Again, all first to 3. So there's a lot of this evening for you to digest. But before we go into that next match, which is going to be Wichita State University versus Ryder, it has been a pleasure casting with you, Vincent. I have not had the opportunity to, but it's been awesome to have the chance of being alongside you, my friend.
Hey, ditto, man. It's been a good time. And listen, you don't have to go anywhere. We're going to take a look at some pretty awesome replays as well of some things that happened there in the last matchup, because there were some awesome highlight plays. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back with some more Overwatch action.